I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast, broadcasting on a somewhat cool and damp Taipei evening on Saturday, October 13th, 2018. Before getting started, let me remind you to watch or listen to this week's YouTube playlist. You can find it in the playlist section of this YouTube channel, or in the comments section below, or at the end of this video. Those are the best 12 videos of this past week, and I'm sure that you'll appreciate them as much as I did. Now let's begin today's program. A big hook in Gog, and a hoax reminder. Russia did something this week that I did not expect them to do, and it represents a gigantic investment in both Syria and Iran. It might also be a battlefield test of the S-300V4 anti-aircraft system against America's F-35 stealth fighter. What the Russians gave Syria, and yes, it was a gift, is worth more than $4 billion. And Russia doesn't do gifts like that unless there's a really big purpose behind it. And that purpose is to shoot down Israeli jets and kill Israeli fighter pilots. What Israel does in response is uncertain. Unfortunately, this story also brings a reminder that there are hoaxers out there attempting to capitalize on this event and events like it by making up stories that just aren't true. Have you ever given someone a gift? A really big one? How would you feel if someone destroyed that huge gift and hurt the person that you gave it to? Well, that is what just happened in Syria, the gift part. And as of this writing, nothing has happened to that gift from Russia to Syria. What was that gift? The most advanced version of the S-300 anti-aircraft system currently in operation, the S-300V4. And I remember the fear that Israel felt when Syria attempted to buy a lesser and smaller version of that system. Israel successfully blocked that sale of that lesser version of that system, probably the S-300 PMU-1 or PMU-2. Also, that sale was only worth $1 billion. What Russia gave to Syria was worth 4 times more than that, and far, far more advanced. Russia gave Syria 24 launchers and 300 missiles. Each launcher is worth about $150 million. Each missile is $1.5 million in worth. That's $3.6 billion for the launchers and $450 million for the missiles. There is no way that Syria paid more than $4 billion for this. They didn't even pay $1 billion for this. They can't afford it. The most that Syria might have paid is the $1 billion that they had in Russian banks for the original deal, if that money hadn't already been paid out already for something else. Worse, this is the most advanced of Russia's family of S-300 anti-aircraft systems. The S-300V4 is said to be twice as effective as the S-300V3. The only jets that might be immune to this system is the F-22 and the F-35. And Russia thinks that it can shoot down the F-35 with this system. Can it? I have a very bad feeling that it can shoot down the F-35, and I do not want to be proven right. But I think that we are about to find out. Luckily, Israel's F-35s have been grounded for the time being because of a technical fault that they're trying to figure out. We'll see what happens later. In 8 days, Russia says that it will complete the training of Syrian operators for this missile system. This seems to mean that it will be Syrian personnel manning this system. If Russia destroys this system, will any Russians be killed? Will it be only Syrians? Of course, if this system is only used to protect Syria's advance into Idlib, maybe Israel won't feel the need to destroy those missiles and missile launchers. Maybe. Unfortunately, Syria seems intent on protecting the Iranian buildup of Iranian weapons depots in Syria, and Israel cannot allow Iran to do that. Israel cannot allow Hezbollah to get more rockets than it already has, so those launchers will need to be destroyed. Russia will not want those launchers destroyed, and a successful strike, taking out those missile batteries, will make Russia look very, very bad, and sales of the S-300V4 will dramatically decline. But what if those missiles are able to shoot down Israeli F-35 aircraft? That would be a gigantic PR coup for Russia. Russia would be able to sell these anti-aircraft systems to other countries as a way to block the U.S. and U.S. allies. NATO would never have been able to bomb Libya and eventually murder Muammar Gaddafi if Libya had received a sufficiently large installation of the S-300. And what the Syrians just received could be considered sufficiently large. Now, it is still possible to destroy the S-300 system with an overwhelming barrage of rockets and missiles. After all, Syria has been given only a few hundred missiles and 24 launchers. But the kind of attack that would take out those missile batteries would also do significant damage to Syria itself. And I'm not sure that Russia would stand by doing nothing while that attack happened. Could Israel mount such an attack? Would America or NATO do it? Whatever does happen, the Russian delivery of the S-300V4 is a major step towards the eventual coming of Gog and Magog. And when I say major step, the Bible refers to it a bit differently. Quote, "And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." Ezekiel 38:4. Remember that Russia was reluctant to enter into the Syrian conflict. Their base in Tartus was just a supply depot. When the Soviet Union fell, Russia's involvement in Africa and the Middle East fell with it. But that changed in September or October of 2015. Right about this time, 3 years ago, Russia was brought back into the Middle East. It is believed that Qasem Soleimani of Iran's elite Jerusalem force, aka Quds Force, went to Moscow in the summer of that year and convinced Putin to get directly involved. That involvement paid off well with increased sales of Russian military equipment. You might think of that as yet another hook in the jaws of Gog. And I always find it interesting that Gog has more than one jaw. And one jaw has clamped itself onto eastern Libya. Russia has been quietly supporting General Khalifa Haftar in eastern Libya. Haftar has taken most of Libya while the corrupt morons in the eastern part of Libya, in the western part of Libya, in Tripoli, fight among themselves. Russia appears to have increased her involvement recently, but it's hard to get reliable information. A newspaper that I have utter disdain for posted this, quote, the title is, "Putin troops in Libya. Russia sends troops and missiles into Libya in bid to enforce stranglehold on the West." Close quote. Most of the articles on this subject are referring to this article in The Sun, and I have disdain for The Sun because they are a tabloid newspaper that loves producing pornography. And I try very hard to never post links to any of their articles for precisely that reason. The Sun newspaper was the originator of the Page 3 girls, and they still hold true to that ideal in their pornographic articles on celebrities bearing all. They might not do the Page 3 girls anymore, I'm not sure, but their foul and evil pornographic depictions of foolish celebrities aren't an improvement. This brings up an important point that everyone should be aware of: hoaxes. When there's only one source for a piece of information and that source has had a reputation for unreliability, you need to be extra careful with that information. And I had an additional reminder of that just a few days ago. A friend sent me a link to one of the most foul and evil publications that I know, Debkafile, spelled D-E-B-K-A-F-I-L-E, Debkafile. I'm going to quote myself from October of 2015, exactly 3 years ago. I started writing regularly about Israel in the 1990s. I believed that it was important for people to get the truth about Israel instead of the lies being told by the mainstream media. And since I was living in Israel, I felt that my perspective had or was of some value. Then, in the early 2000s, up popped this website called Debka. They almost immediately posted material that was either completely false or could not be verified. The owners of the site did not give out their names or any other contact information, so it took some investigative work to track them down. But again, I was in Israel, and so I was able to do this. When I called them, Giora Shamis picked up the phone. I asked him where he got his material, and his only response was, "We're just that good." Of course, he didn't actually realize why I was asking that question. What I wanted to know was why there was so much material that was completely false. But his answer told me everything that I needed to know. Giora Shamis and Diane Shalem were making it all up. The only part of their writing that is correct is the material that they steal from others. Everything else is completely made up, out of thin air. To put it another way, they are lying to you. I detest lies of any and all kinds, and it makes no difference if the lying liar is an Israeli or someone else. I absolutely detest lying liars, wherever they are. Why I'm mentioning this is due to a Debka file report that has swept through the internet and is completely and utterly false. It is yet another example of the lies that Giora Shamis tells. And again, I remind you that this was exactly 3 years ago. It is about the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning. Debka file claimed that the Liaoning was docked at Tartus in Syria to assist Russia in their fight against the Syrian rebels. Anyone who knows anything about the PLA in Liaoning knows that China would never do that. And if they did, they could not have done it secretly. Here's what you need to know. The Liaoning is a training ship and is completely unsuited for such long-range patrols. They do call it an aircraft carrier, but it is only a training aircraft carrier. It cannot launch planes with a full weapons load because it doesn't have a catapult. It also cannot get past Taiwan or through the Malacca Strait or through the Suez Canal without everyone knowing about it. Of course, Giora Shamis is betting that it would be so difficult for you to figure that out that you just accept his ridiculous claims as fact. But don't take my word for it. Here's a retired Navy intelligence officer to make it clear to you. And her article was called "There's No Chinese Aircraft Carrier in Syria." And here's one from a friend of mine who is an accredited journalist. Debka file is a complete fraud. And yes, that's what the title exactly is. The bottom line is that you can never trust a liar. Debka file is a complete fraud and only a fool would trust them. Don't be a fool. Okay, so back to me in 2018. Do not give Giora Shamis money. He is a predator, preying upon the good intentions and honesty of good-hearted Christians who love Israel. People like that are psychopathic liars without a shred of conscience. They will steal your money and use it to spread foul and evil lies. Never trust a liar. Never. Now we get to what I consider to be the most important part of the ShockCast, the news and analysis from the past week. But before going on, take a moment to click the subscribe button below, if you're watching from YouTube and it's down here below, and hit that bell to be notified when the next ShockCast happens. Those of you listening via MP3, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. And there's an important reason to be subscribed to the Shock Letter, since I usually do not have time on the ShockCast to talk about more than just a quarter, or in this case, maybe even a tenth of the news that I analyze at Omega Shock and the Shock Letter. So subscribe to the Shock Letter and get all the news and links that I analyze for free. In fact, everyone should sign up for the Shock Letter. Subscribing and unsubscribing is simple and easy, and there's no way that I would ever share the subscription list with anyone, period. I'm not in this for the money and never will be. Now, there are only 3 entries for this week, but each of them is important, and the first one is about China. It's titled, Freaked Out New World Order versus We the People, Alex Newman, from Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog. This is the write-up for the interview with Alex Newman by Greg Hunter, that link. Of all the paragraphs that you need to pay attention to in that link, this is it. Quote, Newman says one of the most important and underreported stories of the last century is how China is being incorporated into the New World Order plan to enslave and rule the planet. Newman says, I did a cover story about China a few years ago, and people said I was just being conspiratorial. My article was about how the communist Chinese dictatorship was staking claim in the New World Order. I wasn't speculating, and I wasn't theorizing. You had people like George Soros saying that communist China needs to own the New World Order. He said they have a better functioning government than the United States, and that basically China should run the New World Order that these people had been building for decades and generations now. Communist China rose to power and prominence with deliberate assistance from key people in our State Department, in our Defense Department, and almost all of them members in the Council on Foreign Relations, or actual communist agents. Close quote. China is the future of the New World Order. The Chinese model will be the model for the Antichrist system that is rising as we speak. The only question is when that model goes global. Please pay attention to China. China is the future. But no, the Antichrist will not come from China. The Bible tells us where the Antichrist comes from. These next two links are about the horrible and horrifying situation in the British military. Yes, it centers around Tommy Robinson, but that is only just a symptom of the gigantic, or a much more gigantic problem that they have. The first one is Stand With Our Lads, the rebel. Someone took a picture of Tommy Robinson with some British soldiers. Then the British Army then took away the cell phones of these soldiers and are now investigating them. These soldiers are in a lot of trouble for just a picture with a really good guy. And at least one young soldier will be discharged for this one moment. So Tommy Robinson, along with the rebel, created a petition to help these young men out. These soldiers signed up to serve their country, and now they're being hounded by the British Army for having their picture taken with Tommy Robinson. I can't believe that the British Army has done this. I don't want to believe it, but I must. Because the morons in charge at Whitehall would do this kind of thing. It's something that I've seen before. If I didn't know history, I would be mystified at how anyone could be this stupid. But the leaders of the British and American militaries have been complete idiots throughout history. And no, don't get me started on how stupid the military can be. We would be here for a long time. Even though I'm an American, I signed this petition, and you should too. This is an absolute abomination that the British Army would do this. These soldiers are underpaid, undersupplied, and sent off to battlefields to serve their imperial masters. And now this. Sign this petition. It's actually in the comments section below, and it's really important. It will only take you a minute. The next one also is connected with this. It's titled, Imam Has British Soldier Fired for Standing with Tommy Robinson. It's a YouTube video. Here, Ezra Levant weighs in on with this exceptionally reasonable and well-reasoned discussion about how absolutely irrational all of this is. Britain should be ashamed that they've allowed such a foul, evil, and stupid people to make decisions for them. Theresa May, Jeremy Corbyn, the British Armed Forces, and every other politician should hang their heads in shame over this. They're the laughingstock of the world, a joke, and a bad one at that. To my British readers, it's time for you to take back your country. Well past time. Well, that's it for this week's ShockCast. I truly hope that you'll be ready for what is coming. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Proverbs 22:3. If you find a flaw in my reasoning, have a question, or wish to add your own viewpoint, leave a comment on the Omega Shock website or in the comments section below. Omega Shock readers and ShockCast listeners leave awesome comments, and I value each and every one of them. Again, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. In fact, everyone should sign up for the Shock Letter. It's free. Subscribing and unsubscribing is easy, and there's no way that I would ever share the subscription list with anyone. Period. You have my promise on that. For those of you on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. All of that helps you and me get the message out. And as this video ends, you'll see links appear in boxes within this video. Those links will take you to other ShockCasts, a link to subscribe to the ShockCast, as well as a link to the playlist of the important videos of this past week. And you will see the links to that playlist in the comment section below. And so, allow me to close with this blessing from Numbers 6, verses 24 to 26. Yevarechecha Yehovah Yeshmirecha. Ya'er Yehovah Panav Elecha Vichuneka. Yisa Yehovah Panav Elecha V'yasem Lecha Shalom. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Numbers 6, 24 to 26. May your pastor give you the words on Sunday that you need to continue walking the path that God calls you to follow. And Lord willing, I will see all of you next week.